morning. My name is Gen Miyano. I'm one of many close family friends of the Masudas, and I want to thank them for including me today in celebration of Katz's life. When the family first asked me to share a personal experience I've had with Katz, I was able to recall a lot of good memories I've had with him, although not the underwear, stage, but some of my best memories I've had with him were, when I first met him and the 3 to 4 years that followed. So I'd like to share some of those memories with you today. When I first met Katz 36 years ago, when I was 19 years old, through my good friend Ray, who at the time was working for Katz at his carpet cleaning business. And even before I first met Katz, I knew he was special because Ray would talk about him all the time, very fondly, which surprised me at the time because as long as I'd known Ray at that point, which was about 5 years, he never talked about anybody that way. When I asked him, what was different about Katz, he would tell me that Katz was the first older adult figure who really understood him and respected him. Katz had a similar upbringing like Ray, a tough one. So whenever Ray would have problems or issues, and confide in Katz, Katz never judged him. Instead, Katz would patiently listen to Ray and offer him words of support and encouragement to get him through whatever he was going through at the time. And Ray also mentioned that he would spend a lot of time with Katz and his family, at their house after work, talking for hours, and how they all become like a second family to him, which surprised me again, coming from Ray. Now, don't get me wrong, I was definitely happy for Ray because as young as we were at the time, the both of us had gone through some dark periods, together in our earlier teen years. And our experiences with adult figures, have mostly been negative up to that point. So seeing him find some stability and guidance from a person he respected so much, and who treated Ray with equal respect, was really good to see. Ray would try and convince me to go with him to Katz's house on multiple occasions, but at the time, hanging out with my buddy's boss wasn't my biggest priority. So I actually ended up meeting Katz one day by chance, when I went to go pick up Ray after work at their house, because we were going to go hang out. And as I walked up to the house, I wasn't expecting much, but as soon as Katz opened the door and greeted me with his big smile, I immediately liked him. He was friendly, engaging, pleasantly loud, and he had this enthusiasm about him that when he shook your hand, he made you feel like he's been waiting to meet you his whole life. And when he corrected me and insisted I call him Katz, after I first addressed him as Mr. Masuda, I liked him even more. So, instead of calling for Ray to let him know I was there, he immediately invited me in that day and made me feel very welcome. When I walked in, I saw Ray sitting comfortably on the couch, drinking a beer, looking like he didn't want to leave. So I figured we were going to stay a bit. And that's when Katz, in quick succession, proceeded to, offer me anything I wanted from his refrigerator. And he told me to make myself comfortable anywhere I wanted in his house. I pointed out the remote control and said, hey, watch whatever you want on TV. And then he would keep offering me something, even though I was still standing in his doorway. I remember his kindness was a little bit too much for me to take in at the time because I wasn't used to receiving that type of hospitality before, ever. So for a quick second, I did question whether Katz was genuine or if he was just putting on a good act. But, any doubts I had about Katz disappeared as soon as I met the rest of the family. Betty, Candace, Michelle were just as friendly and engaging as Katz was and equally made you feel at home. But I think what really convinced me that Katz was genuine was the authentic relationship that they had with him. Most families I knew at the time weren't nearly as close-knit as the Masudas were, which I thought was completely normal. But watching the four of them interact, I saw how much love and respect they all had for each other and, the ease at which they communicated. So I knew right there that, that Katz's intentions were sincere. Because in my mind, the type of adoration he was receiving from his family can only be earned through years of being an exceptional father and husband. It's not something that you can easily be faked. So it was that brief moment, of watching their connection while I was there that showed me the type of person Kotz was and why he was so easy to like. So that night, instead of leaving, both Ray and I had ended up staying there and talking to the family for hours, getting to know each other, and I just remember really having a good time. To the point where after we left, I remember turning to Ray and asking him, when we can go back. And shortly after that night, we started hanging out at Masuda's house on a regular basis every Wednesday night. And it went on for several years. I'm not sure how we decided on Wednesdays, but I know each week we all did our best to adjust our personal schedules so we could come hang out with Kotz and his family. And it wasn't just me and Ray. Almost everyone else we hung out with at the time was introduced to the Masudas, and they were all warmly accepted into the family like we were. Sometimes there were one or two of us there, but most of the time there were as many as 10 of us, all sprawled out across their couches on the floor, talking, eating, watching TV, drinking beer, and generally being loud, but always respectful. Kotz would also have a few of his own buddies over at the same time, and we would hang out with them as well. Most of them, including Kotz, were brawlers back in the 50s and 60s, so they would watch some of us hit his heavy bag in the garage and give us tips on how to use those punches effectively on people. But they would also give us life advice and tell us to be safe at the same time. We had a lot of respect for those guys, so usually we ate up anything they told us or to do, and we just went with it. But this is also a time when we had no cell phones or computers to distract us. Some of us had pagers that went off sometimes, and the Masudas were always gracious enough to let us use their landline if we needed to. But other than that, everybody there was social and interacting with each other, and Kotz was always the center of that social circle. And I honestly think he loved it every moment. Kotz and his family weren't drinkers themselves, but they would always go around the house making sure that everybody there was having a good time and being taken care of. Always a perfect host. They were never judgmental of any of us. They never once asked us to leave early or asked for anything in return, for that matter. They just accepted us the way we were. They offered their home and hearts to us, and it was something that we all appreciated. I'm sure none of us wanted those Wednesday nights to end, but sadly, as life progressed and we all got older and gained more responsibilities, those regular hangouts eventually did stop. Of course, Kotz would always tell us that we were welcome in his home, and we would go over from time to time, say hello and chat. But on a personal level, I was sad to see our weekly outings, and I'm sure Kotz was too. Over the years, we all maintained a close friendship with Kotz and his family, and I would often see them at various community and social functions. And one thing that never changed when I saw Kotz, was his personality and enthusiasm. Kotz was always the kind, selfless, positive guy that I met years before. When he talked to Kotz, it was never about him. He never talked about himself, like his grandkids said. But he would always proudly boast of any achievements that his kids or grandkids had, and I admired him for that. He was also always curious to know what was going on in your life. If things were going well for you, he would tell you that he was proud of you, he would encourage you to keep moving forward and keep doing what you're doing. If things were going bad, he would still tell you that he was proud of you. He would pat you on the back and tell you that everything would be okay. If you were in a bad mood when you first started talking to him, then you left feeling better after, even if the exchange was a simple greeting. Kotz played a lot of roles for me during the time that I've known him. He was a father figure, a favorite uncle, older brother, and a friend, all in one package. And I don't think I'll ever meet anyone like him again. So I'm very fortunate that he was a part of my life, and I'm definitely going to miss him. Thank you.